warriors and actually clashing in the movie theaters. And so it became a dangerous situation that theater owners were pulling the movie. So, I mean, it kind of got a bad rep, but all that did was just make it, people want to see it more. But it didn't get great reviews at the time. But one of the things that I don't know is true, and again, it's just me researching some of the folklore of this. Apparently, according to Michael Beck, apparently President Reagan saw the movie.
Yep.
And called him and said he liked it.
You know what it is? You know what I think it is, man? It's just Walter Hill's meat and potatoes approach. You feel the sweat, you feel the grime, you feel the urgency, you feel the fights. It's very cartoonish, but it's also grounded. I think that appeals to a lot of people, would you say? And just the way how muscular it is. I think that's a good word for it.
Well, it was a teen movie. It just was not presented, in the normal 80s teen kind of thing. But it was a great movie. It just didn't click with a lot of people. It's to this day, I think it's one of the great films of the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, it's 1979, so it's right there on the cusp. But it had some tough competition that year.
Oh, but it did all right.
1979 was a great year for films.
Oh, great year for films.
Oh my God. I mean, and then Alien, which Walter Hill produced. Walter Hill produced all the Alien movies. So that he had a gift for action films in an unusual way. But God, there were so many great films.
Mad Max, Alien, Apocalypse Now, Escape from Alcatraz. Meatballs?
The China Syndrome, Monty Python's Life of Brian, Moonraker, Rock and Roll High School, wow. Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and one of my favorite films, Time After Time, with Malcolm McDowell. I don't know if you ever saw that. That's where he plays H.G. Wells, who created a time machine chasing Jack the Ripper. So that was another great film. But yeah, what a great year for movies. I mean, solid stuff.
I mean, look at Alien, Warriors, Mad Max. Those are just so iconic. And you know what? Do you think this is what kind of keeps Warriors so popular? I mean, look at Mad Max and Alien as well. The practical sets. The Warriors hasn't aged terribly because they shot on location. They shot in actual places. I mean, they had a subway. There's subways now. It's just
and the costumes were, the Warriors costumes was timeless. That could be today. Some of the other cartoonish stuff, no. But I mean, you're right. It holds up really well on that. But, I think we have, I saw this movie when it first came out.
Did you go fight somebody?
No, but I mean, you get jacked up. Mm-hmm. I mean, I just like James Remar's character Ajax. To me, he really stood out. I mean, he was just he was cocky, sure of himself. I mean,
kind of dumb.
Kind of dumb. By the way, that scene where he gets arrested by the undercover cop, that undercover cop was Mercedes Ruehl.
Oh, wow.
The actress?
Yeah.
Who went on to play in another one of my favorite movies. She played Jeff Bridges' long-suffering girlfriend in The Fisher King, which is just a great movie. But yeah, Mercedes Ruehl played the undercover cop in that scene. So yeah, that was kind of interesting.
Ajax is so tough that he knocked out one of those cops with one hand while being handcuffed to that bench.
Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
And I got to give props to the stunt coordinator. His name's Craig Baxley. He went on to direct Action Jackson, and he directed Dark Angel with Dolph Lundgren and Stone Cold, the movie with Brian Bosworth, the action film that's absolutely insane. But he also did stunts on Predator, A-Team, Dukes of Hazzard, Diamonds Are Forever. This guy, Craig Baxley, they didn't have much time for these fight scenes. Okay, they play like a movie fight scene, but there's also a certain violence to them and a swiftness to them that plays well. There isn't a 8-minute fight scene when these guys get hit. When Ajax lands on guys, or when Swan lands on a guy, or Cochise lands on the guy, there's a scene where Vermin gets on top of a guy and just starts leveling his face. So it's obviously stuntmen and the actors, and it's choreographed, but it does have a certain physicality. It ages well. I'm not comparing it to the Raid, but that would be unfair. I think they handled the fights really well too, and there's a narrative behind the fights too.
The only flaw is I read that the stunt coordinator in the scene where Cyrus gets killed and he falls back.
Yeah.
It's a white guy.
Yes, it is.
in the outfit, and you can't see it that well, but you can tell that it's not the actor who played Cyrus in it. And so
I do have to say, I think this movie could be good for students or young filmmakers to study and research just based on the on-location shooting. So in the subway, they couldn't change the lights. So the DP, Andrew Laszlo, got the lights and attached them to different, he found the same lights and he attached them to different things so they could keep the lighting, but all the same.
And they weren't ashamed that those lights, you could clearly see the lights in the trees.
Yes.
during the fight scene
yes.
Of the baseball Furies, but it didn't really matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
It gave the scene a really great look, but if you're running through the park going, hey, there's lights attached to these trees, and I just I didn't think anything of it at first, because now you do see lights pretty much
in the trees,
nearly in the trees now. So it was done. It wasn't done for looks other than lighting up the park. So it had a great after effect. You could clearly see the lights in the trees, but that was a great scene. And
it wasn't until a year later, when in Escape from New York, that they found these new Panavision lenses that were able to shoot in low light. And so in Escape from LA, a lot of it's practical lighting with fires and everything, so they were able to shoot in low light. But that didn't really exist when they were shooting this with the Warriors, and they probably didn't have the budget. Why not just throw some lights in it? Who cares? It's a movie. They're about to fight a bunch of guys dressed like baseball Furies.
That your eyes were on the Furies. You weren't really looking at the trees. You were looking at the baseball Furies, who just, were dressed like Kiss and baseball uniforms, but they did look scary. You saw guys like that chasing with baseball bats. Yeah, I'd run too.
And I got tired watching them run.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was a long scene. Those guys were hoofing it. They were hoofing it from the beginning. You see those guys tear around the street corner before they hit the park. The baseball Furies are all in line at full speed coming around that corner. You're like, fuck.
And Cowboy has to slow down, and then Ajax is happy. Cowboy did not handle himself well in that fight, man.
What do you say? He goes, I don't think I can make it. He goes, good, I'm tired of running from these wimps.
And he just lays out the main baseball Fury, just lays them out.
Oh God!
I loved it, man. But they did a good job casting, and Walter Hill stressed getting kids that were real, New York kids. You can't really fake. We've worked in New York, Dave. I've been to New York. You can't fake New York. I think there's a really interesting way that New Yorkers hold themselves. Long-term New Yorkers, not people who move there and call themselves New Yorkers. Like people born and bred there. They have a way of holding themselves. And you could tell that with these guys. That I really dug. I liked it a lot.
It's like I said, it's a solid movie. It's not real long. It's fun to watch. You get vested in the characters. It's a movie of its time. Nowadays some people might laugh at the cartoony outfits or the lack of serious violence. This was street fighting, just bare knuckle fighting. It wasn't, there weren't any Uzis or any, anything major. It was just, it was a sign of the times where the gangs were, they all protected their little, 2-block turf and all had a theme. And it was kind of innocent, but, it looks different if you watch it today. I don't know that it could be remade. Do you think this thing could be remade?
No, absolutely not. Because with the technology now and gangs aren't going to take over. There are a lot. They wanted to take over the cops, so there are a lot of issues with that. But no, I don't think so, because it's an analog movie.
Maybe in a dystopian future, like Escape from New York, where it's just everything is broken down and you have various gangs again. I could see something like that. But as far as a modern day take on the Warriors, nah, I don't think it could be done.
I know there are a lot of action films that, I love Edge of Tomorrow. I love some very digital heavy films, but I always go back to Sorcerer or The Raid or, I don't know, The Night Comes for Us or This or Mad Max. Movies that, I'm not saying they're super kind of analog. They're super fist fights. There's practical stunts. There's real cars. That's the action I love. And I guess that's kind of the stuff I always go back to for this. And that, I don't know, I think but people still love this movie, man. This is it's
a classic. I'm going to throw it out. It's a classic film. It's coming from Walter Hill, who is really good at stylized violence, and also for the fact that he's produced all the Alien films up till now, with Ridley Scott and the other directors, and so it's got a solid pedigree. People and music.
Oh, yeah, I love the score on this.
The score on this is so, it's electronic, but Barry Dvorak, I believe is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Barry Dvorak it's moody. That opening theme song, it makes you want to run.
Yes, it does.
It's music that you should run to. It has this great vibe, but it's all basically electronic synthesizer, except for the very last song, which the Eagles wrote. Seems kind of out of place, but at this time, it's kind of innocent when you look at it at the very end of the movie. But that became a hit for the Eagles, and then I think they also put it on their next album as well. But the whole movie's got that creepy synthesizer stylized stuff. And by the way, Barry Dvorak is known for writing the theme song to SWAT.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's been used in almost all modern movies. So I mean, it's something that Tarantino, will use or has used in the past, but he was known for writing a theme song to SWAT, which is kind of a catchy theme song if you look it up.
I think this one holds up better than some of the other synth-heavy scores that came about in the 80s, late 70s, because there's a rock and roll element to this score, but there's also the synth, and they blend well. It's not just... It's
got guitars.
Yeah.
It's got there's that that opening scene, you have that dun 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 with with the guitar, but it does open with a synthesizer on it. So yeah, it was modern. It still holds up. I have an original soundtrack that I found a couple of years back, and I'll play that. I love that opening theme song or the Warriors theme song on it. It's a solid soundtrack. So
you need to send it to me. You don't need to own it anymore, Dave.
Nah, I got to play that. I usually play that every time I DJ. So it's a great opening song on that. So
hey, so how about this? Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we have something fun to set up, and then we'll also finish up talking about the Warriors. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And Dave and I, we have something funny. You and I, we put together our all fist fighters crew. So you and I both.
I gotta segue in with we have to keep with the theme on it. Oh, it is. All right, good.
I liked hearing your finger getting popped out of that bottle too.
Yeah, I can play a tune with it. I went through a lot of effort to get those props. So
whenever I worked with Dave at Comic-Cons, I always tied glass bottles around him, so I always knew where he was. Oh, here he comes! I'm running.
All
right. So, do you want to start us off? You'll pick your.
Yeah, I want to. For something that was kind of surprising to me, on Rotten Tomatoes, the tomato meter for the Warriors is 89%.
Yes.
And the audience score was 88%. So, a really solid film. And I think this is due to, the VHS crowd, the people who go back and find, really great films that may not have been big as a box office, but they held up well, in time. Kind of reminds me, I just read an article, I believe in Esquire, about how The Thing.
Yes, and Blade Runner.
And Blade Runner just died at the box office, and I didn't realize this, but The Thing almost killed Carpenter's career because it did so poorly. But then, due to, and again, I'm going to call it the VHS crowd, people, video stores and fans started rediscovering these things and brought them back to the forefront of just, classic, legendary films that were probably ahead of their time, but they stood up to today's films. They're considered classics. So yeah, I consider the Warriors in that same vein. It may not have done extremely well when it came out, but it's a classic film. But 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's not bad at all.
And right here, I'm reading something right now. At a 7.6 on IMDb, which is insane. 89% Rotten Tomatoes, and the box office is bigger than I thought. It made $22.5 million on a $360,000 budget. That's count inflation. That movie made a ton of money when it was out.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So, I mean, people loved it until they pulled it because people were getting stabbed.
Well, they can always say, President Reagan liked it, so...
Release that sucker. All right, so let's do our fist-fighting crew right now. You ready for this? You want to do our fist-fighting crew?
Yeah, I may need some help on that, but yeah, go ahead.
All right, so my first pick, I picked Frank Armitage from They Live, played by Keith David. I didn't pick Roddy Piper. I picked Keith David because in that fight, Keith David is just lighting Roddy Piper up. He's writing Nada up with his fists. I mean,